What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Becoming a Pokemon Gym Leader is one of the greatest honors that you could be given. However, it's not the highest because there is the Elite Four. As the name implies, this is a much more exclusive club including only the strongest trainers around. However, upward mobility is not impossible because we have seen gym leaders ascend to the rank of the Elite Four with the likes of Koga in Gen 2. But that's not all, because the same has happened with Wallace and Iris as well, both becoming the champion of their regions, or even Acerola in the Alola region. So which other gym leaders might be the most likely to be promoted to the Elite Four? I suppose to answer that we need to first figure out the criteria, because if we're honest, I'm not sure that most people would have pegged Koga as the one to rise to the top from Kanto. I mean, he's got poison types, right? So wouldn't he be weak to Sabrina and Giovanni? Well, yes, but also Giovanni just kind of leaves after he's beaten, so that's not really a factor, and with Koga being a ninja, he would be able to pull out some tricky tactics to outmaneuver Sabrina, with his minimizing or disabling. Plus, we already saw in Johto that he got his hands on a Forretress, so a Steel type would help to stand up to those strong psychic attacks with some stab bug moves to help take them out as well. I think it's reasonable to see how Koga would come out on top, but what about the other regions? While Koga is an Elite Four member of the Johto League, he comes from the Kanto side of Indigo Plateau, so we never got to see an actual Johto gym leader rise to the occasion. But the question is, which one would it be? Well, firstly, I don't think team composition is the main issue here, so Faulkner will not be held back by his two weak birds, nor will Claire automatically win with her strong dragons. But speaking of Claire, I'm not sure that she or Whitney would have the temperament for promotion, seeing as how they both threw a fit when you beat them. And mentioning Faulkner, I'm not saying that he's dumb, but when his Pokemon World Tournament team has 4 normal and flying types, when flying had already been paired with everything but fighting by that point, he clearly doesn't care about type diversity. So then that just leaves half of them, since obviously Bugsy can't win, we know that much, and I would say that Price probably wouldn't fare that well either, considering that he's not even that great at being Ice, but would also have to contend with the Fighting and Steel-type leaders. And of those two, I would say that Jasmine's more laid-back attitude would fall to Chuck's determination. So that means he wins, right? Well, out of the gym leaders, I suppose, but I would assume the means of promotion is to actually beat some of the Elite Four as well, and seeing as how the Johto Elite Four starts with the Psychic Will, it would be hard for Chuck to break through. So I'm kind of surprised, but I think that means Morty would rise to the top. His ghosts would obviously help against Will, and the poison isn't even that bad because he has used plenty of others in the World Tournament. So that could easily carry him past the poison and fighting type members of the Elite Four as well, before getting walled by Karen's dark types. But to me, it makes sense that Morty would be able to get that far. So since we already saw Wallace as the champion, I'll skip over Hoenn, although I would say that either Norman or Winona would probably be likely. Norman with his super strong normal types, and Winona for actually having different types paired with flying. Take note, Faulkner. So then that takes us to Gen 4. And I think we can go ahead and say that Rourke probably wouldn't make it that long, with grass, water, fighting, and steel-type leaders to contend with. Actually, I'm not so sure Byron would last much longer than his son given those first 3 options, with half of even his best team being susceptible to Gardenia, Crasher Wake, or Maylene for that matter. However, Maylene would have some trouble with the Ghost Leader Fantina, who would likely come out on top over the grass and water as well. So will Fantina replicate Morty's success? I'm not so sure, since the last 2 gyms, Candace and Volkner, seemed almost prepared for a coup and stacked their teams against her, with Candace having a Sneasel for strong dark offenses, and Volkner having an Ambipom to be immune to ghost-type attacks. Maybe it wasn't such a random choice after all. So which of the final 2 would win? Well, given half of Candace's team resists electric and would be super effective against his Octillery, it's likely that she could beat Volkner, especially if he were still in his funk. Now, you might say that Candace wouldn't last that long against the Elite Four when most of her team is weak to Bug. And that's true, but Aaron has his share of weaknesses to Candace's team as well. Now, that is different in Platinum, but so is Candace, including a Frostlass and Piloswine instead, so I think that she could pull it out. And then, of course, she could easily beat Bertha before getting bodied by Flint. So as much as Candace might have set her sights on getting ready for Cynthia, she did overlook that even the limited fire types of Flint would be a challenge for her. Now once again Unova showed us Iris getting bumped up, so we will move on, although I do think Clay would have a pretty good shot at the title, with his Crocodile and Excadrill giving him decent footing against at least half of the Elite Four. So that takes us to the Kalos region, which is a bit trickier. I thought maybe Grant might actually do pretty well until I saw the next two gyms, and the fact that every other gym in the region has a dual type that can beat Rock, so sorry about your luck there, Grant. That being said, I kind of doubt that Ramos and Wulfric have what it takes in their old age, mostly because they chose very poorly with weak typings, and they don't have full movesets on any of their Pokémon. So that leaves 3 leaders out of the rest, since I think Corina would probably have a hard time with her super effective foes, but I don't think that Clement's heart would be quite in it, since he seems like he'd rather be off doing experiments than wasting all of his time as an Elite Four member. So even if Olympia is mostly weak to electric, I'm not sure it would matter all that much, especially since I hope that these leaders would have more than the 3 to a team, but without a New World Tournament or something to go off of, it's all speculation. However, I think that on the whole, Valerie may not have the same potential variety on the table with new Pokémon, but the past updated fairies I think are more than enough to send her over the top in beating out her fellow gym leaders. And that makes sense because Fairy was the shiny new toy in the Kalos region. So Valerie would easily be able to handle Drasna with her fairies, her Mawile being a pretty great counter for the poison-type Dragalge, and she might even be willing to squeeze out a win over Seabold or Malva as well. So I would say that this enigmatic girl might just have what it takes to step up to the plate after Malva totally gets arrested for being a part of Team Flare. Alola gave us its own share of promotions as well. I'm not sure if Kahuna to Elite Four member is an upgrade or more of a lateral move, but at the very least we did have Acerola. If it were going to be anyone else, I feel that maybe Hapu would have the right stuff. I mean, after all, she does get past them to challenge you as the champion, so it makes sense to me. Also, I guess technically Larry in the Paldea region is promoted from Gym Leader to Elite Four member, but perhaps not permanently. It's a bit open to interpretation. So then that leaves the Galar region to be next. And while they don't have an Elite Four per se, they do have a champion. So who could maybe beat Leon? Well, they gotta handle each other first. So I'm gonna have to say that either Sirchester leader would be a tough sell since they both have abundant weaknesses with the other leaders. I mean, Gordy's best bet is to take out his own mom, and they're not even in the same version. Plus, Kabu seems pretty ready for rocks, with most all of his Star Tournament team having super effective moves against that typing. And despite a good attempt with Milo having a Ludicolo in at least one version, I do think that he would ultimately fall to Kabu and the others. Granted, he would actually be able to do decent damage to Raihan at the top, but Raihan also has a Sun Weather team, so he could do extra damage to Milo's Garden. But I do think that there's a reason Raihan has made it so high in the gym leader ranks, because he uses double weather strategies to such great effect. I feel like this and the sheer variety of typings sets him apart from the likes of Alistair or Bee, who have mostly monotyped teams concentrating their weak points. And honestly, as much as I love Nessa, just a regular Sea King? Really, girl? So I'm not sure she's got what it takes either. Which leads me to say that Raihan would probably come closest. However, if we're branching out, I do think the past leader, Peony, could have the power as well. His team is comprised of strong steel types, so if Peony could beat Raihan, I do think that he could have a real shot at toppling Leon as well. Sure, Leon's ace is Charizard, but all Peony would need to do is hold off his sturdy Aggron until the end just to get in one shot at a Stone Edge, and then he wins. So I think either of these men could have an adequate path to finding themselves the new champion of the Galar region. So then the only one left after that is Paldea, and like we said, there is Larry's unique situation, but if we were to inquire about another, it is a bit harder. First of all, I only just now noticed that literally the only Pokemon with 4 moves in a Paldean gym is Grusha's Altaria. None of the other dozens of Pokemon have a full moveset. They either have 3 or even worse, 2 attacks apiece, so hopefully this would be remedied, otherwise none of them deserve to get promoted. But luckily we do see them mostly fix this when they use improved teams upon rematching them. However, they could be a little better, like if Brassius used a Scovillain in his all-out team. And even then, they still don't all have full movesets. I was kind of surprised to see that Katie would actually fare much better than I expected when she goes all out, even being able to overcome perceived poor matchups like Rhyme, with almost all of her bugs packing Dark-type moves. However, I do think that Katie would struggle to beat even Rika, especially with that Camerupt on board, so I do think that Tulip might be the most likely to get promoted out of all of the Paldean leaders. Well, besides Larry, but you know what I mean. Especially if she were able to cap off her whole team with an Armarouge, that would be pretty great. So, not every gym leader is cut out to rise to the level of Elite Four member. However, I do think it's reasonable that a number of them that we've seen would have the grit to come out on top and join the ranks of the most prestigious trainers in their region. Just like the ones that we've seen already do so to date. Which gym leaders do you think should likely get promoted? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!